They say home is where the heart is, but it's also where the to-do list never ends, the laundry piles up, and something always seems to need fixing. I'm Jackie McDougall, and this is the Grown-Ass Woman's Guide. In this episode, we're putting the heart and control back in our homes. Part of being a grown-ass woman is knowing how your home works so that your home can work for you. And speaking of home projects,
I was doing a little project on the screen porch, putting what's called a turnbuckle on the door, and it helps to keep the frame straight so you don't have a sagging door and it doesn't stick and whatnot. And for whatever reason, she started filming me.
That's Beth Kindig, half of the TikTok and Instagram duo Boomer Beth and Gen X. If you haven't seen their channel yet, you need to make that happen. They're a longtime married couple with hilarious banter, endless home projects, and the kind of chemistry that makes you want to be their BFF.
Hey, honey. Hey, honey. Hey, honey.
No.
What are you doing?
No, you are not recording.
Honey, this is not your house. This is not your house.
That's going to make me crazy.
She's been saying, hey, honey, for 25 years. Rarely does she call me Beth. If I'm called Beth, then I know I'm in trouble. But if I get a hey, honey, I know that everything's, copacetic. So she just started filming me, and it kind of went from there. And since I am constantly doing projects, it's just turned into Boomer Beth and Gen X, which I credit her for the name because it's very pithy and very, cute. And it's very appropriate because I am a baby boomer and she is a Gen Xer. So it works out well.
While Beth and Jen turn everyday projects into entertainment, I am truly in awe of what Beth is capable of doing. She builds water features in the garden, she cleans out gutters, and she hangs shelves with no instructions. She even decorates cookies and finds treasures at Costco, which, side note, is basically my church.
Hey, honey, what are you doing?
I just got home from the Costco.
Oh,
$117.
but I'm sure you have treasures.
Well, this is the biggest treasure.
Okay.
This is pretty exciting. So, we go out on the boat. I'm always at a loss for how to containerize things.
Yes.
I'd love to have a beautiful charcuterie board out there, but it's not really prudent when one is on the boat.
Or charcuterie, as I've heard it
Oh,
called.
jeez. Of course you would say it that way.
I know not everyone is out there rocking the power tools, including me. Recently, I polled the Grown-Ass Woman's Guide community and asked them how well they actually know their homes. Turns out about a quarter say they are Ms. Fix-It. They've got it. They know exactly what they're doing. Almost half said they'd figure it out in the moment, and that includes me. And the rest have no idea how their house works. So if that is you, you are not alone. And today you're in luck because there's help. I asked our resident goddess of home projects, Beth, where her skills came from. Turns out it's in her genes. Did you come out of the womb that way? Were you like fixing the lighting in the delivery room? Like, how did that happen?
In the nursery?
Yeah.
My parents were married for 32 years and then finally got a divorce, which they should have quite earlier than that. So my mom, even prior to that, was pretty handy, pretty fix-it. She grew up in the Depression, and her father was a carpenter and taught her many, many things.
Yeah, that's so cool.
So she already had those skills prior to the divorce, but after the divorce, she had it all to do herself. And I'll never forget one of the first things my mom did. She moved into an apartment immediately after the divorce, but then when I was in college, she bought a very small house. The first thing she did, we paneled the garage. She painted the garage floor, and she put carpet strips down where the tires would go for the car. And I have a garage thing. My garage has to be a particular way because our garage is side loaded, and it's where most people enter the house when they come to visit if they've been here before. So I need to have a tidy, neat garage. But I really did learn most of anything I know from my mom. She was pretty amazing.
That is not where I thought that would go. That is so cool.
Yeah. One night she was coming home from a church service at Christmas time, and in the park she lived in, they had luminaries. Well, some had caught on fire and were burning. So mom runs home and gets a hose and, puts the fire out. I mean, mom was just always constantly taking care of things. So I guess the apple has not fallen far from the tree. I hope. I hope I can grow up to be the woman my mom was.
That's amazing.
When I bought my first house, my mom had just retired then, and she probably did more to that house than I did because I was working, but we put in a new toilet and we actually built a wall which, we didn't drywall it, but we put up a frame so that we made a bathroom and a laundry room, separate from one another. So,
and this is before YouTube.
Yeah, this was back in the 1980s.
Yeah.
So it was definitely all my mom, and to see her go from a marriage where she had to be fairly dependent to being an independent woman and taking care of everything herself and doing these things. She was just a phenomenal role model for me.
What was her name?
Josie.
Josie.
Yeah.
Oh, well, Josie rocks. She's getting credit in this episode.
Yeah, thank you. She would like that.
Awesome. While Josie's skills were pretty unique, her story really isn't. For generations, women have been quietly holding it together, often carrying the brunt of the mental load when it comes to the household.
I think back to all the things that she did. She worked full time. She took care of lawn care. She cooked. She did laundry. She did all the things. I have no idea how she managed that, having a husband, raising children. So when it comes to the traditional roles and moms feeling overwhelmed, I totally get why they just wouldn't have any energy left to try anything new.
Yeah. And I think some of us, it's just not our natural skills too. And there's a lot of fear behind that, getting it wrong.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it makes sense when we let a partner handle all that stuff, especially when that's what we grew up watching.
I grew up on I'll call it a small hobby farm. So we had 15 acres and we had some livestock and whatnot. And my brother, who is the oldest, is 12 years older than I am. So when he went off to school and whatnot, I was the one that had to do chores. And I think depending on your family dynamics, if you're the girl in the family, maybe you aren't taught to do the things that your brothers take care of. And that's kind of sounds a bit generational, which, but I think that's kind of the mindset. I see it changing. It's definitely changing. But I'm in a golf league and a bowling league with women of a certain age that are older than I am, sometimes 10, sometimes 20 years older. It's interesting to hear them talk about the things that their husband will take care of, especially if I say, oh, I did such and such, and they're just amazed that I did that, but I have no one else to do it, and I've learned how to do it. So I think that to some degree it is generational, and people are afraid to try to do something. I used to be afraid to tackle anything electrical, and just a couple of days ago, with the help of a friend, I replaced a GFI outlet. So electricity doesn't scare me as much as it used to. Wow. I did at one point go zzz, and she was like, I'm kidding. I couldn't help myself.
That's funny. There are a million reasons why we might not know our way around the house, but we're grown-ass women and we can handle it. The question is, how do we learn? In Beth's house, she came up with a genius way to help her wife, Jen, a house manual. It's basically a household playbook that includes how to turn off utilities, logins, and passwords, and definitely who to call when you're in the middle of an emergency. It's the kind of thing that every grown-ass woman should have, but most of us don't. What inspired you to create a home manual of sorts for your wife?
Well, it was a combination of things, and I've always had a file cabinet of, okay, here's HVAC, here's plumbing, here's, whatever. And I would find myself just sticking receipts and whatnot in there, and these files were getting so big, and it was difficult to go back and find anything. So it was probably that, coupled with, in the span of maybe 5 years, I think I had 5 different surgeries. And I thought, God forbid anything would happen, Jen needs to know some of this stuff. So that's really the basis of how the house manual was born. Just an easier reference point than going to a file folder in a file cabinet and, surfing through 80 pieces of paper to find the one that you needed.
Right. Absolutely. And I think about it like you go to a vacation home or something, a VRBO and you get there and there's a binder typically on the counter and it has all the information that we don't even have for our own homes. Like there are people living in houses or apartments or whatever who don't know how it works.
Yeah.
I know more about the beach house that we stayed at for Memorial Day weekend.
That's an interesting point you bring up, because recently I stayed in an Airbnb that did not have an actual physical manual. It was all within the Airbnb write-up about the house and whatnot. And I missed that physical manual. I may be more tactile than I should be, but I really wanted to hold it and feel it and look at it, which, is what we do with the house manual.
You know where this is going, right? What if we had a guide to help us manage our home and to make all of that grown-ass adulting a little bit easier? Sound good? Then you definitely want to keep listening. So let's get back to Beth. She's basically a modern-day Schneider. Some of you know who I'm talking about. And she's here to help the rest of us with clear, simple tips, like how to find a repair person you can actually trust. What are some non-negotiables? What are things that women need to know how they work in their own home?
Oh gosh, I would never profess to try to, fix my furnace if it went out, but you need to know who to call. You need to know how to research. I use a variety of research methods when I'm going to employ a company or contract through a company. Certainly word of mouth, personal experience is my favorite one, because I much prefer referrals over a blind, well, your Google reviews look good. Well, you can't always trust that. So, I definitely say when there is something that goes wrong, especially if it's something major, ask your friends and family first. Ask the people you know. Nextdoor, is a big popular app now. I kind of question, its validity to a degree. So I'm just a big believer in asking and then doing some research. Check Nextdoor to see if anybody else has said anything about it. Check Google reviews, Yelp, whatever the case may be.
But before we turn to repairs, we need to quickly learn how to stop the bleeding before it turns into a catastrophe. So there's something really important and simple that we should know: how to turn things off.
At least know where your water shutoff is. And I highly recommend labeling it, because if you went down to the basement where our water heater is and our main plumbing coming in the house, there's about 18 different valves and dials and whatnot down there. So I have marked what the main shutoff is in case you have something just, spewing water all over the place. You want to know how to shut that sucker off. So I'd say from that standpoint, definitely know where your water shutoffs are. Electricity, I think it's really good on the breaker box to have that labeled as to, what breaker goes to what portion of the house. Now, that's something that you need an electrician to come and check the circuits and label that for you. But, keep it up to date. And that way, when you've blown a circuit in the kitchen, which one you need to flip or which one you need to take a look at.
I'll add gas to your list there,
Oh,
of knowing
gosh.
how to turn off the gas. I mean, I live in
Yes.
earthquake country,
Yes, you do. That's scary.
Yeah. And I've been asking around before we did this recording of how many women know how to turn off the water and the gas. It's not many. Maybe you have a boiler, a heat pump, or a furnace, or maybe you have zero idea how your house is heated. It does depend on where you live, how old your house is, and some other factors. And plumbing can vary just as much. Maybe you're connected to a city sewer system or a private septic that needs to be pumped, or these words are sending you into a deep, deep spiral. Breathe. It's okay. You're doing great. The point is, every home runs differently. And the more we understand how our unique home works, the less likely we are to panic when something goes wrong. And so even from moving from one community to another or one neighborhood to another, things may work differently.
Absolutely. It's interesting, though. We don't really live in a neighborhood, but we have a neighborhood across the road from us and a neighborhood behind us. But all the lots are an acre, so you really can't see our neighbors. But when we moved in, we're at the front of that neighborhood, if you will. All of the people behind us are on a well and septic. We are on city water, but a septic system. So we were different from the neighbors right off the bat. Turns out I'm glad we are, because their water's really, really bad.
Pro tip from Beth, not me, obviously. If you're house hunting, make sure you ask these questions before you buy.
Just know to ask the right questions. If you're looking for a house, know to ask, what are the utilities? Where are the utilities located? They should all be done, when there's the survey and whatnot in the home inspection. But it is good to know if you have a sewer or if you have a septic, because as we've unfortunately found out, the septic will cause issues every now and again. That's in the home manual too, the year that we had the septic worked on.
Another pro tip, know who you're going to call before the poop hits the fan. Sometimes, literally. Because when something breaks, you will be so happy you did. Write these people down now. Do the research now when you're not. How many of us are in a crisis? So I was literally recording a podcast episode back a few years ago when my neighbor came running up to my front door. He's a retired firefighter. And he told me I had a leak in my house. And I was like, how do you know? You know, because he had seen the side of my house was covered on the outside in water. And so I ran outside and we opened my garage, and it was raining in my garage. The bathroom up in my sons have a Jack and Jill bathroom, and the pipe in the wall had burst or broke.
Oh my gosh.
And it was just, it was such a mess. And I didn't know how to turn off the water. And I also didn't know that you could call the fire department to help you. It never even occurred to me that for flooding because he's a retired firefighter. He's like, call 911 and the fire department will come. And I'm like, I can't call 911. Like, it was ingrained in me that would be very irresponsible because I'm not in danger of a fire. He's like, call 911.
Right. Gosh, I'm going to remember that one. That's a good one.
Yeah. I had no idea. So, knowing in advance, but also not being in that position where you're in the middle of a flood and then trying to find a plumber on the Friday before Labor Day weekend, by the way.
Exactly.
And so do you have a whole list of all of the service providers that you prefer?
Yes, I do. And actually one of the tabs in my manual says home improvements, but within that are, the things that we've done to repair or replace or completely do. It also has who did the home improvements, whether it was a satisfactory situation or whether you wouldn't use them again.
Yeah, that's smart.
Sidebar for a second. That's really helpful if you would ever have to prove the value of your home. We refinanced back in 2020 when interest rates were much lower. And it was really helpful that we had recorded when we finished our basement, when we redid our master bath, when we put in a new driveway, when we redid our kitchen. We had all those things listed. And I can remember our mortgage person said, wow, this is really good information to help substantiate the value of your home. Because had we not, they would just look at the statistics of our home and say, oh, well, your house was built in 79, so your kitchen is old and, whatnot. But within that same page in the house manual, I have who we use for plumbing, their phone number, the person's name. If it's like our plumber, for example, we've had him for 25 years. I hope he doesn't retire anytime soon, but his name and his cell number. So yes, definitely have those things written down in case of an emergency. And I'll tack one more thing on to that from, unfortunately, personal experience. Many, many years ago, there's a horrible storm that came through and it blew a transformer that's on the very edge of our lot. We have a wooded lot. We're really in a woods. Well, the transformer set that portion of the woods on fire, and the fire kept coming closer to the house. So while I'm scurrying around trying to, get the hose and get things ready, Jen's moving all her guitar cases out the basement door, which I understand that, but
her babies.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing probably that's most valuable in our home, but it was really a scary situation. So the fire was getting closer and the fire department would not come because there were power lines down. And so then obviously we lost power. Well, we ended up not having power for 4 days. So we didn't have enough candles. We didn't have flashlights with batteries. We didn't have all the things from an emergency preparedness standpoint. So we do now have an emergency kit that has extra batteries, extra flashlights, candles. We use the votive candles and just have a bunch of those. So if we need to have some kind of illumination, it did prompt me to go out and buy a portable generator. So, that I start 2 or 3 times a year just to make sure that it's functional. And now, of course, ever since I was prepared for all that, we've not had any kind of long-term outage, but hey, I'm ready for it.
You are so ready. It's funny. I was going to ask you about a generator because I was just like, of course, Beth has to have a generator because it's more than lights and saving the ice cream. Sometimes people have medical needs or other very important reasons to have power. And so how did you choose a generator?
I checked into the cost of a whole house generator, and it's rather expensive. I think if I were younger, when we bought the house 23 years ago, that would have probably been a good time to put something like that in. And not to mention, and I hate that I'm worried enough about aesthetics, but where they wanted to put it, I didn't want them to put it there. So that's a horrible reason. Oh, it costs too much, and I really don't like the way that would look. So I thought, okay, portable generator, for a refrigerator. Fortunately at this point in time, neither Jen or I need to have any kind of medical devices, but I did my research. I'm a member of Consumer Reports and found one that's small enough, but it would still run some lights. It would run the refrigerator, the freezer, charge the cell phones. That's the big one. Also, I have like a little really work table size generator that we can use to plug our phones into. So I don't have to get the big gas one out. And it's really not that large. It's a really nice little generator.
Yeah, that's cool. And also, even having those portable batteries, phone batteries.
Oh, the power banks.
I have them because I have teenagers who need, suddenly have 10% and they're going out for the day.
Right. Yeah.
But,
no, those are awesome.
Yeah. When you're pulling together your own emergency kit, think function over fancy.
It's just a toolbox that has all that stuff in it. But of course, I had to label it emergency kit because, how else would I know it wasn't just one of my general toolkits? No, it's pretty standard. People make fun of me and my label maker. It's a thing. I love my label maker.
Yeah, same. I have my label maker. The part where you cut off the label has been broken for years. And so I have to just jam my little fingers in there and just push it down. But I don't care. I don't want a new one. I'm happy with my old, broken.
That is resourceful right there.
That is the 11th child of 13 right there.
13?
Yeah, 13. So, you don't buy a new label maker. It still works fine, Beth.
Wow. Yeah, I can't even imagine.
I mean, I love my little label maker, but maybe it is time for an upgrade. What if you have a house sitter or pet sitter or a guest who's staying overnight who just needs to know the basics, but you don't want to give them access to all your personal information? Well, Beth has us covered there too.
I actually have a document that I edit as needed, when we unfortunately lose a pet or, something happens differently and it's not a manual. It's just a couple pieces of paper of, when the animals are fed, where their food is kept, who their vet is, how to operate the television. Because anytime I go someplace different, like an Airbnb, I'm like, oh, shoot, here's a whole nother way to operate a television. So it does have those kind of things in it. Here's our alarm company. Here's the password, that kind of thing. But it probably wouldn't hurt to put it into some kind of a book instead of just a couple pieces of paper laying there.
And when it comes to protecting our valuables from fire or theft or just nosy people, tell me about your safe. You must have a safe. Is it giant?
No, it's really not. I'll tell you, it's the safe that I remember as a child being in the closet of my parents' room. And it's not very big at all. It is fireproof. And it has, our wills and our passports and titles to vehicles and some mortgage information, that kind of stuff. But I've often thought, boy, I would like to have a bigger safe. I don't know what all I'd put in there, but surely, there are things that are valuable to me that probably, if someone broke in the house, would be like, I don't want that, but, it's valuable to me.
Beth's energy and can-do attitude is everything we need in our lives. Add in her wife, Jen, and the internet becomes more positive and productive and pleasant. And isn't that something we all need these days? I think that you're inspiring people, through humor, through relatability, to show up in their lives. And that's what this whole podcast is about. Women showing up and doing the things that maybe we think that we can't, or we're not capable, or it's just scary. And so anytime I see a woman out there just taking care of her shit, it's like, it makes me excited more than it probably should.
Yeah, and it's all about taking the first step.
We just need to be empowered to take care of our own selves and our families. And so whether that's through understanding how the house works or an emergency kit or a trust or any of that stuff, I think we need to have these conversations, and they don't have to be dry and they don't have to be scary. They can just be with everyday people who are doing it.
I have so many friends that are just as handy as I am. I have my project buddies who come and help me do things. I helped a friend of mine who I swear will tackle anything, put in a new water heater. So I learned then. And it's just when you observe, when you actually put your hands on it, I'm a visual learner and I have to be involved in the process. And, ask for help. Don't be afraid to ask for help. That's something I've been reticent in doing for a while, and I'm learning now. I have to have somebody hold that ladder.
Yeah, that's a great final statement. We can't all have a Beth in our lives, but I've created the next best thing. It's a home guide for grown-ass women. It's your roadmap to a home that runs smoother, feels calmer, and keeps you ready for anything life might throw your way. I'm still working on it, but it doesn't mean we can't start to get our lives together today. I've created a free grown-ass home checklist to get you started right now. Download it at grownasswoman.guide/home, and when the guide launches, you will be the first to know about it. Because being a grown-ass woman means being prepared and doing it with confidence, competence, and maybe a new label maker. I'm Jackie McDougall, and this is the Grown-Ass Woman's Guide. Until next time, you are a grown-ass woman. Act accordingly.